So today I'm here with the Associate Dean of Embry Riddle Business School, and we're working on a publication, and I figured it would be a good time to do another dialogue video. We're sitting here in the National University Spectrum Library, and it's been a while since I've done one of these, so I felt like why not, since I have my colleague here who is smarter than I am, why not have a dialogue with him and pick his brain about some of these concepts that we're going to be discussing over the next few weeks. So first question I want to discuss, the way these dialogue videos are structured, I try to have some that cover some of the concepts that we're going to be working through in the class, as well as just some personal questions to kind of get the students to kind of engage and get a better understanding of who we are as people, because I think a lot of times professors are seen as, you know, this kind of sage on the stage, and there's this kind of aura around them that kind of some students find intimidating, and I think once they get to know us, they realize that we're just like everybody else, and so I think that that's a fun way to engage with the students. So the first question, and Matt, Dr. Earnhardt, he's actually created a course on leadership and negotiation and conflict and power dynamics, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, a good and productive negotiator should have what one characteristic?
An open mind. I really think that you, going into a negotiation process, you have to be able to have an open mind, to be able to talk to someone about the process, what you're trying to get from the person. You have to be willing to give a little bit. So along with an open mind is great communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I know those are two separate things, but let me link them in this way. When you have an open mind, you're more willing and more receptive to what the other person is saying. So you're going to be able to communicate and be able to ultimately get what you want, because what you think is ultimately what you say. So going in with an open mind and knowing what you're thinking, having clear thoughts is going to help you communicate well.
No, I like that a lot. Has there been a situation in your life where you could give a clear example of that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of situations. One of the things I think of for me personally is when I played in the NFL. No, I'm just kidding. When I'm negotiating for a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go in and most people think that when you walk into a job, they offer you a salary and then you have to accept that salary and that's it. But maybe the salary is something you have to accept, but there's other things you can negotiate, such as flex time, such as time off, things of that nature. So going into a negotiation with a clear objective of what you want, and then being able to listen to the other person and work with them is something that's important.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked for Lockheed Martin, one of the things I did was I went in there and I said, okay, you're going to offer me X amount of dollars per year. Can I get $5,000 more?
Mm-hmm.
Which works out to be whatever it is a month. And they said, no, we can't do that. I said, okay, well, you're going to put me on shift work. Can I have the day shift schedule? And they were willing to say, yes, we want you, so we're going to do that. And it was that open mind and that ability to try and see where they were coming from that ultimately led to a successful negotiation.
No, that's a great example. What are 5 rules of life that you live by?
5 rules of life that I live by.
And by the way, these are all questions that the students dialogue around themselves in the class. So these are all going to be presented to them. So
great.
So they'll kind of get an idea of where you're coming from, and then they'll be able to kind of have an example of how they're answered and what to look for in their own answers.
Yeah, so do no harm would be one rule of life that I live by. You know, I don't want to do harm to other people. I don't want to do harm to myself. I don't want to do harm to my family or the environment or anything else. So do no harm is one that I live by. Work hard is another one. So really have that strong work ethic and give a good 40 hours or however many hours you have to do would be another one. Let's see, that's 2. Have fun would be one, and I think on this trip out here, me and you've had a lot of fun.
We definitely have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're good at that. We work hard, but we also make time to have a good time as well.
Yeah. Always be learning is something else.
Mm-hmm.
So be able to constantly better yourself every day
Mm-hmm.
through studying something new, reading, consuming things, whatever. And then again, and this goes back to negotiation, is have an open mind. So be
Mm-hmm.
willing to listen to the other person, understand where they're coming from, have empathy. And you don't always have to agree with them, but
Right.
you shouldn't judge them and what they're doing. So those
Right.
are those are the 5 that I try to live by.
Yeah, no, I like a few of those resonate with me a lot because I think I have the same. I think, I tell my students, if you learn from your rule of life to be constantly learning. If you make, out of the thousands of decisions we make every day, if you, because you're constantly learning, make just 2, 3, 4 better decisions than I do, because you are just smarter, because you're constantly learning, you're going to be significantly more productive over the course of 5, 10, 15 years. And I see that all the time with colleagues that are, putting in the work and the effort and the time to be learning about everything and constantly polishing their skills. They're way more, it's exponential compared to somebody that's just kind of putting in the bare minimum.
Right.
They are significantly more successful.
Right.
And then you're at your point, and again, we are both don't have a problem with this, but having fun. I think I see it all the time where leaders feel like almost ashamed to have fun,
Mm-hmm.
Guilty about having fun. Like, I'm supposed to be responsible. I can't have a good time. And they burn out. And not only do they burn out, but they become toxic leaders because they're just exhausted.
Yeah.
And they don't put time in for themselves, for, self-care.
And they need to bring that into the workplace, which I think is your point as well.
Yes, correct. And I think if, the leader's setting the tone, so if the leader is more apt to be relaxed and let those underneath her or him have fun, that's going to spread down, and it's going to create a more relaxed atmosphere, and in my experience, a more productive atmosphere, because less stressed, less toxic, less oppressive. Whereas if you have somebody that's just a slave driver and they're working themselves to the bone, and then they work their employees to the bone, and you may be, I've seen that be successful for short amounts of time, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
That level of productivity is not going to last in the long run.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because work-life balance is so important, and I think that's something we lose sight of because I work for a very demanding boss who will call me on Labor Day about something that could definitely have waited till Tuesday, or during a hurricane that we were in recently. Even though the university was off, he was calling me every day, which is fine, but it doesn't give me that time for rest. So I recently heard a talk where they talked about picking one day and doing nothing and really resting that day and using it for fun or whatever you want for your enjoyment. And I think that's something we have to do. Even on this trip, we we went south of the border to get some tacos, and that was a good time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, absolutely. And we've been more productive, I think, because of that. You have fun, and then you're ready to dive into the work and crank it out. And then your last one, an open mind. I mean, I think that's just important to any kind of communication and dialogue. And your point to, you don't have to agree. It's not about agreeing. It's just about, and this is another thing that I tell my students when I answer my 5 rules of life to live by. Again, this is one of mine as well. That I try to trade in judgment for curiosity.
Yeah.
So rather than being like, oh, I wouldn't do that, or, well, that sounds like a waste of time, or that sounds boring, or that's not, being more curious about that other individual's experience, subjective experience of this reality that we're all sharing, and just being like, oh, what is their perception? Because I'm seeing it through, a white male lens, and so what is their experience of reality, and has it been? And when I switch my perspective, my paradigm to that, it completely changed how I have conversations and how I communicate. Rather than going in with a judging mind. And this may not be an issue for everybody. It was for me. I feel like there was a time where I was very judgmental and critical. And at the end of the day, it didn't make me happy, and it definitely didn't make me a fun person to be around.
Right.
And so when I made that shift and went to just being an open mind and a curious mind, it definitely helped me a lot.
Well, and I think that bared out this week, where I do some things that you didn't understand, so we talked about, and then you do some things that I didn't understand, so we talked about them, and try to live in each other's experience.
Right.
Now, you may not decide to ultimately do the things that I'm doing, but that's okay.
Right.
But you understand now a little bit better.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's not about agreeing or disagreeing or right or wrong. It's just about understanding. Correct.
Yeah.
Being curious and be like, okay, now that makes sense. That experience, I can understand where they're coming from, having that experience of reality.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'll do one final question, because I like to keep these short for the students. Let's go with, how do you think power is dangerous?
Well, power can be a good thing. Right, power
Absolutely.
in negotiations is a good thing, and one of the things that I recently came to understand is those who have the most power probably don't have as much invested in the negotiation process. So going in the negotiation process, if I had the power, it's because I'm not as invested as you, so that gives me an upper hand. Because when you're really invested in something, sometimes you can get emotional about it. But power, you definitely have the opportunity to use your power in a negative way. And I think that's what you're driving at, is when you're in a negotiation process and you're the one with the power, then you can use it to manipulate the other person, and we definitely don't want something like that. What you want is that dialogue, that give and take between the two people to ultimately get to a win-win. And that's called integrative negotiation, as opposed to, I forget the other one, but it starts with a D, negotiation, where you're out to win. In this case, you're out to come up with a joint decision. So if you have the power and you're willing to relinquish that a little bit, then it makes the negotiation go a lot smoother, and ultimately both sides can get a solution that they're happy with.
So it sounds like when power can be dangerous when it's coming from a competitive standpoint, where
exactly.
I'm going to try to just run you over in a negotiation and take it. It's going to be a win-lose. I win, I get everything I want, you get nothing.
Yeah.
Rather than the collaborative approach, where it's win-win. Let's try to see what we can do. Where we can both get the best out of this. Yeah. Okay, one last question, sorry. Conflict is one-word answer. We'll end with this.
Conflict is necessary.
Necessary. All right. Thank you, Dr. Earnhardt. It's been a pleasure, and
Thanks.
I appreciate you taking the time to do this for our students.
Yeah, thanks, students.
Let us know what you think about this. I'm doing it a little bit differently this time. I'm using my iPhone on a tripod rather than the production team that I have here at National University, and I'm not sure what it's going to be like. So.
And you got to see the back of my head the whole time. So that's probably something you want to fix in future videos.
This is all a work in progress. And I try to make it more authentic and kind of on the fly, so they don't seem rehearsed. I mean, he didn't see these questions beforehand, and we didn't go through this beforehand, because I want it to be more authentic and raw and.
Based on my
real.
T-shirt, I didn't even know we were doing this 10 minutes ago.
I just threw this all out. I made sure I was dressed up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Always trying to one-up me.
We'll see you all next time.